This is the story of Yuta, a boy who lives with his family, just his mom, dad, and him. Yuta is obsessed with making movies, so on his 12th birthday, his parents gift him a smartphone. Excited by the possibilities, Yuta begins recording everything around him. What makes this manga unique is its storytelling perspective. Everything we see is shown through the lens of Yuta's smartphone. It's as if we are experiencing the story from the phone's point of view. Yuta's mom has a heart-to-heart with him. She tells him, "You know I could die any day because of my illness, right? How does that make you feel?" Of course, nobody wants to discuss something like this on their birthday, so Yuta brushes it off, saying he doesn't want to talk about it. But his mom insists, "Since I don't have much time left, I want you to record me starting today. That way, even after I'm gone, you can watch these recordings, hear my voice, and see me move. It will help you feel less lonely. So, will you do this for me?" Her words shock both Yuta and his father. But after a moment, Yuta agrees. From that day on, he begins recording his mom everything from their family vacations to everyday moments like eating meals. He even records his parents while they're asleep, justifying it by saying, "What if she dies in her sleep? I want to capture every moment I can." Soon, Yuta has 6 hours of footage, and his phone runs out of storage. His parents buy him a PC so he can transfer the videos and continue recording. This becomes a routine, capturing every moment of his mom's life. Eventually, the inevitable happens. Yuta's mom is hospitalized, with only a short time left. He keeps recording her even in the hospital, honoring her wish. By now, he has recorded over 100 hours of footage. Yuta is overwhelmed, saying, "I can't believe this is happening. I'm devastated." Finally, the day comes. At the hospital, Yuta's father tells him, "Your mom wants you to record her final moments." But Yuta can't muster the courage. He runs out of the room, unable to face his mom's death. And then, the story takes an unexpected turn. The hospital explodes, and Yuta whispers, "Goodbye, Mom." But here's the twist, everything we just witnessed was actually a movie Yuta created. The explosion wasn't real, it was an edited addition to his footage. The real Yuta couldn't fulfill his mom's final wish. He didn't record her last moments. Instead, he compiled all his recordings, edited them into a film, and added the explosion as a plot twist. Yuta premieres this movie at his school festival, thinking the twist will blow everyone's minds. But instead of awe, the audience reacts with confusion and ridicule. They laugh at the absurdity of someone showing recordings of their mom's death, capped off with a dramatic explosion. While Yuta hoped to impress, he ends up facing the harsh reality of his grief, and how others perceive it. At school, kids laugh at him, mock him relentlessly, and treat him like a joke. Even his father confronts him, angrily asking, "How could you do this? How could you turn your mom's death into a movie? Don't you feel any shame?" And Yuta, strangely calm, replies, "No, I don't feel bad." His father's anger grows. "Fine, you made a movie, but why did you add that explosion at the end? Was that really necessary?" Yuta shrugs. "Because it looked awesome." Hearing this, his father loses it completely. The ridicule doesn't stop there, Yuta becomes a laughingstock at school too. Overwhelmed by the constant taunts and rejection, Yuta makes a dark decision. He records a video. In it, he says, "If you're watching this, I'm already dead. I've jumped from the same hospital where my mom passed away. And I hold my schoolmates responsible, they made my life unbearable with their constant mocking. Dad, if you see this, don't feel sad for me." After recording, Yuta heads to the hospital rooftop, ready to jump. But as he's standing there, contemplating his final moments, a girl shows up out of nowhere and casually says, "Are you really planning to jump? If you are, don't do it here. You'll ruin this hospital's reputation. Jump from the one near the station instead, the doctors there are terrible anyway. Oh, and if you've got money, give it to me. You won't need it, right?" Yuta is stunned by her bluntness, but before he can respond, she takes a good look at him and says, "Wait, aren't you Yuta? The guy who made that movie?" He nods. Without saying another word, the girl grabs his hand and drags him to an abandoned building. They sit down, and she starts playing a movie on a small screen. Confused, Yuta asks, "Why are you showing me this?" She shuts him up, saying, "Just watch. Don't talk." Every time Yuta tries to ask a question, she scolds him into silence. After a while, she says, "We're going to watch 4 more movies after this." Yuta finally breaks his silence. He asks cautiously, "So, do you have a problem with my movie too?" She nods. Of course, it had a lot of issues. But still, it was awesome. I was the only one crying after watching it, while everyone else was making fun of you. Then she gives him a challenge. You're going to make another movie. Starting tomorrow, you'll watch tons of movies with me. And when you're ready, you'll shoot a new one and show it to everyone at school. This time, you'll prove them wrong, you'll shut them all up. For the first time in ages, Yuta feels a spark of hope. Someone actually appreciated his work. Motivated, he agrees. But he still has one question. Who are you? The girl smiles. My name's Eri. And just like that, Yuta cancels his plan to end his life and gears up to create something extraordinary. Yuta starts watching 4 to 5 movies daily with Eri whenever they have free time, after school, on holidays, or whenever they're free. Over time, this becomes their routine. One day, Eri tells Yuta, it's time for you to start writing the story for your movie. Yuta hesitates and replies, you've watched more movies than I have. You should write it. But Eri firmly says, no, you'll do everything. I want to watch your movie. Encouraged by her, Yuta begins writing, but many of his plots are rejected by Eri, who finds them boring. Frustrated, Yuta asks, what exactly did you like about my movie earlier? Eri explains, the scene where you escaped from the hospital was incredible, and the explosion afterward was just brilliant. Plus, the way you filmed your mom was beautiful. Taking inspiration, Yuta asks his dad for advice. His dad reminisces, when you were little, you loved fantasy movies, dragons, and all sorts of magical stuff. Combining their suggestions, Yuta finally drafts a plot and shares it with Eri. The story is about a protagonist whose mom is critically ill and could die at any moment. To preserve her memory, she asks her son to record her. Hearing this, Eri interrupts, isn't this the same old story as before? Yuta replies, wait, let me finish. He continues, on the day the protagonist's mom is supposed to pass away, he gathers the courage to record her but runs away instead. The story then takes a new turn. Just when the protagonist feels hopeless and considers ending his life, he meets a vampire. The vampire motivates him to keep creating movies, and together, they begin their filmmaking journey. Yuta cleverly incorporates his own life experiences into the plot, making it autobiographical but with a twist, the vampire element inspired by his dad's advice about fantasy movies. As the story progresses, the vampire and the protagonist fall in love. However, the vampire starts growing weaker and, like the protagonist's mom, asks him to record her death. This time, he musters the courage to do so, and their love story concludes with bittersweet closure. Eri is impressed by the vampire twist and approves the story. They begin shooting the movie, reusing some of Yuta's old recordings, especially the scene where he escapes from the hospital. To enhance the narrative, they shoot new scenes, starting with one where Yuta's dad forbids Eri from meeting him. This adds emotional depth to the story. After the shoot, Yuta's father thanks Eri, saying, it's because of you that Yuta could do all this. Otherwise, who knows what he might have done. The movie progresses, showcasing the love story between Yuta and Eri as the vampire. However, during one of their shoots, Eri suddenly collapses. Yuta rushes her to the hospital, where she regains consciousness and reveals a heartbreaking truth, she has a terminal illness, just like Yuta's mom. This means her time is limited too. Eri tells Yuta, when I watched your movie, I really connected with your mom. That's why I loved it so much. She then makes an unusual request, I want you to record me until my final moments, just like the story in your movie. Shocked, Yuta responds, how could I possibly do that? Who would want to record someone they care about in their final moments? This brings Yuta face to face with the same situation he experienced with his mom. While it was easy to conceptualize in his movie, living it in reality overwhelms him. He panics and rushes home. At home, Yuta's dad tries to console him, but Yuta refuses to listen. Then, his dad reveals, I recorded your mom's final words. We are shown a recording where Yuta's mom, in her last moments, asks, where's Yuta? His dad answers, he didn't come. He doesn't want to see you like this. To this, Yuta's mom coldly remarks, so, he's useless even at the end. What follows reveals the bitter truth about Yuta's mom. She would force Yuta to record her, constantly criticizing him, saying things like, this shot looks terrible, or can't you record properly? At times, she even physically hit him. She behaved this way because she was a TV producer who had planned to recover and turn these recordings into a documentary. Sadly, she never recovered. Yuta's father confesses, I know all of that was horrible, but I stayed silent. I thought her illness justified it, and I sympathized with her. He adds, when I saw your movie, I was stunned because you portrayed her so kindly, which was far from the truth. This shows us that despite everything, Yuta deeply loved his mom. In his movie, he chose only to show her goodness. His father then advises him, it's up to you now. Do you want to fulfill Eri's final wish or not? After much thought, Yuta agrees. He returns to the abandoned building, where Eri is watching a movie alone. Yuta says, I heard you've been discharged for now. Eri replies, yes. Yuta then declares, from today, I'll start recording you. Eri thanks him with a smile. Yuta begins recording Eri regularly. Eventually, the day of her passing arrives. This time, Yuta succeeds in doing what he couldn't during his mom's time. He records Eri's final moments.
エリは映画、どんな映画にしてほしい？
それは最初から伝えてる通りで。
何でしたっけ？
みんなをぶち泣かして。
This time, everyone in the school praises him, and Yuta regains the confidence to make movies again. After a long time, Yuta still struggles to move on from Eri's death. Even though he managed to complete the movie they worked on together, he spent most of his time editing the extra recorded clips of Eri. This became his way of coping. Eventually, Yuta started working a regular job, where he met a woman. Over time, they got married and had a daughter. Yuta seemed to have moved on, building a family of his own. He lived with his wife, daughter, and father, finding some semblance of normalcy. But tragedy struck once again. While driving with his family, their car met with a devastating accident. Yuta was the sole survivor, losing his father, wife, and daughter in the crash. Witnessing the deaths of his loved ones broke him completely. Unable to bear the pain, he decided to end his life. Yuta returned to the abandoned building where he and Eri used to watch movies together. With a rope in hand, he prepared to hang himself. But as he turned around, he was shocked to see Eri sitting alone, watching a movie. She greeted him with a casual remark, "You've grown so old." Yuta froze, thinking he was hallucinating. But Eri continued speaking, teasing him about how his movie lacked a fantasy element. Startled, Yuta asked, "Are you really talking to me?" She replied, "Of course, who else is here?" Confused, Yuta pointed out, "I did add a fantasy element, I made you a vampire." Eri chuckled and said, "That's not fantasy. The truth is, I really am a vampire." She explained that while Yuta had aged, she remained youthful, just as she was when they first met. Yuta, still in disbelief, asked, "But you died?" "I saw it. I recorded it myself." Eri responded, "Yes, I died, but only in a certain sense. Let me explain." She revealed that as a vampire, her lifespan was 200 years, and those years had come to an end when she died. 3 days later, she reincarnated, though without her previous memories. However, she discovered a letter from her past self, along with the movie Yuta made. Through that movie, she pieced together who she once was. As Yuta listened, it all felt surreal, like a movie itself. He asked Eri, "Can you cope with this? As a vampire, you'll watch everyone you care about, your friends, your family, die while you continue to live. Won't that be unbearable?" Eri smiled and replied, "I'll be fine. I have your movie. Whenever I watch it, I'll remember you. Even if I forget you 1,000 times, this movie will bring you back to me." Hearing this, Yuta couldn't help but smile faintly. Eri then told him, "I don't like talking during movies. If you want to watch, sit quietly. Otherwise, leave." Accepting her words, Yuta said goodbye and walked away. As he exited the building, it suddenly exploded, just like the climax of the first movie he had created after his mother's death. And with that, this unforgettable one-shot manga end.
So, this is Goodbye, Eri, by Tatsuki Fujimoto, one of the most depressing manga out there. Now, let's take a moment to look at this story from two perspectives. First, everything up until Eri's death might have seemed like just another movie, where she dies and everything follows a typical cinematic narrative. But then, tragedy strikes for Yuta. His family dies in an accident and everything he's known crumbles. The story takes a darker, more real turn here, where Yuta's despair leads him to contemplate suicide. When he heads back to the abandoned building, we see Yuta ready to take his life. But then, in an almost surreal twist, Eri appears to him again. It's as though she's come back to pull him out of his darkest moment. Now, how do we interpret this? It's a theme we've often seen in anime and manga where, in their final moments, characters are visited by someone close to them, someone who has already passed away, to motivate them to keep going. This is what happens here. Eri appears to remind Yuta that there's more to life, and he abandons the thought of ending it. This also ties into something much deeper, the concept of letting go. Yuta, having created a movie to memorialize Eri, couldn't let go of her. The emotional weight of his grief, combined with his inability to move on, kept him trapped. But in the end, Eri's appearance serves as a metaphor for the need to break free from the past. Yuta blows up the building, just like the climax of the movie he made after his mother's death. This destruction symbolizes his need to move on, to rid himself of the past, to finally begin anew. Alternatively, the entire manga could be viewed as a movie created by Yuta, where the fantasy element lies in the fact that Eri really was a vampire. This twist turns everything on its head, especially in the final moments. The events that seemed real, the tragedy of Yuta losing his family, his suicidal thoughts, and the explosion could all be part of Yuta's narrative, a fictional story he crafted as an escape from his pain. The true ending could be interpreted as Yuta confronting his own need to let go. The movie plot, the fantasy elements, and Eri's return are all part of his internal struggle. Eri, as a vampire, symbolizes something constant, something that outlives time, while Yuta is stuck in the past, unable to cope with loss. The ending, therefore, reflects the painful truth that moving on from someone you loved is not easy. But sometimes the only way to keep their memory alive is through personal creation, like Yuta's film. And that's what makes the ending so bittersweet. Yuta's catharsis isn't complete. The movie, the fantasy, and the explosion were all part of him processing the grief he couldn't escape. It's a sad, yet beautiful reminder that sometimes the most painful losses are what shape us. So, what do you think? Do you think the ending was Yuta moving on? Or was it just another layer in the movie he created? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you're into even more tragic, heart-wrenching manga, check out my other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.